Good morning. I'm Mrs. Radha Chinnasamy from the Department of English. Hopefully believe that I would like to share a few things about translation, which is a very familiar topic to all of us and which is of recent days the most wanted one. It's got a very good scope and translation is what all of us need. We are all very good at communication and everybody can communicate better. All the emotions that we record in our brain, and we have our own editing means, we have our own cut copy means, and we put forth our thoughts in such a way that everybody can understand us. But still, we prefer mother tongue to express our emotions better than in a foreign tongue, which can act as a second language or a third language. Translation is derived from a word called translatio, where trans means putting across and for means supporting somebody or transporting it to somebody, bringing about to somebody. And here, translation is all about trying to express something that is in the source language into the target language. And as far as Dryden is concerned, it is something that mimics life, or it is just an art of expressing your own life stories. Why he did mean so is think that a translator must be so good that he must first get aware of what the text he is going to translate. He must comprehend it, he must understand it, he must take it deep into himself and simply reproduce it as an actor does. So it's clear that he should play the role of the character that is given to him. He should modify himself into the character, wear the attire of the character, and then exhibit it. It is only then translation can be a success. If not, translation is certainly going to be a failure. There would be a lot of question, what's the need of translation when we express our emotions in mother tongue and we are going to share it only with peer groups or somebody who is very close to us who can understand us better and things like that. But it is clear that but for translation, we would not have received so much of new information. We would not be able to update ourselves with the current affairs. We would not be able to understand what the world happenings is and what is the real scenario. So translation is a process, a means where we spread new informations, we gain knowledges and ideas that are very much relevant or that exist in the whole world, across the world. And it is believed that this translation is, if it is properly done and well acknowledged, it can change history. See, if, for example, Rabindranath Tagore would not have received his Nobel Prize in the early 19th century if he would not have translated it in English, his Gitanjali in English. When somebody checked with Rabindranath Tagore, why do you want to write Gitanjali in Bengali rather than English? All that he had to tell was, you see, I prefer my mother tongue to express my emotions, and it is the mother tongue that would assist us better, help us better to express ourselves. But even then, if at all, we ought to be acknowledged or recognized or accredited by the world around us, it should be in a tongue which everybody are familiar with. That is why he was forced to translate Gitanjali into English, and that paved the way for him to be honored with the Nobel Prize. So here, what are the common types of translation that ought to be taken into consideration are, the first and foremost is literary translation. This literary translation is used to translate literary texts, and when translating literary text, one have to be very creative. All the innovations that you have, all that you feel like expressing must be expressed with clarity. So literary translation is all about translating a literary text with its tone, style, diction, rhythm, and all that involves a literary text. Next comes technical translation. This is mostly about the technological ideologies involved. All the choice of words should be accurate, apt, authenticated, and this is mainly used to translate manuals, technical informations, and such things. When it comes to administrative translation, it is all about translating government documents, government notions, corporate setups, and all that is involved in administrating a business, corporate, and things like that. That is what we call as administrative translation. Next comes financial translation. This financial translation, when you translate a financial document or a document which has all the agreements and things like that, translating a financial document, you must be well aware of the socio-cultural setup. It is not easy because in one particular setup, it is entirely different when we talk about what finance involvements are. When it comes to rather the south or some other region, it is entirely different. So when translating a financial document, you should be better aware of all the socio-cultural things that are involved in it. Then coming to legal document, this is the most complicated translation. It could be done only by a professional translator who is well advanced, who is aware of all the intricacies of translation. Because why we talk about this is the agreements, legal documents, court proceedings, something that is so much involved with the political affairs are done only through this legal translation. And when you have a little skip or a misuse of this translation, somewhere you violate the rules, you don't adhere to the original source text and things like that, obviously it would naturally lead to very severe consequence which can never be repaired later on. So that's why legal translation is considered to be the most complicated translation. And there are a few other translations which we take into consideration, which are called as judicial translations, website translations, that is translating Wikipedias and things like that. Then comes medical translation, which is very familiar in the world these days, medical transcriptions and things like that. Then life science translations, that is the manuals you have or the prescription modes you have attached to your medical prescriptions, pharmaceutical devices, technical devices, and all research and trial things. And you have even research translations. Normally acknowledged language in the world is English, and so anything and everything that is available in all the regional languages are translated for better comprehension. Then comes patent translations, sports betting translations, NGOs, IGOs translation, government and public sector translation, marketing and advertising translation services, and commercial translation. So it's clear that anything that is involved in life, that's why Dryden would have been clear that it is just life. So anything that was involved with the man's lifestyle, anything that is involved with the day-to-day happenings of a man, anything that would help man to proceed further comes under this translation, helps us to facilitate better only through the service of translation. So when so much is involved with the translation, when we attach so much importance to translation, what is more needed, what are considered to be the top qualities of good translation are, the first and foremost thing is accuracy. You must be so accurate that whatever exists in the source text must be completely transported to the target language. It can be a slight variation could be there because not every language supports every word, and it's not comfortable, but still the real essence, the extract, the juice of the source language must be translated to the target language. So accuracy is more important. So when you translate, you should not violate the rules, or there should not be a misleading, and you should never give a chance to reading in between lines. So clarity of thought process is important. So clarity enjoys the second position. The third thing is authenticity. Whatever you do must be authenticated, must be acknowledged, must be recognized. So authentication enjoys the third position. The third thing is whatever tone and style the writer of the source language uses must be retained in the target languages. So no violation of tone and style is permitted here. The next thing is cultural appropriateness. For example, whatever exists in Tamil language, because Tamil is my mother tongue and I would feel more comfortable quoting only from Tamil. So whatever exists in Tamil cannot have an equivalent thing in English, or whatever exists in English cannot have an equivalent word in Tamil. So I should utter, one who translates must utter to the cultural appropriateness. For example, there is a maxim in English saying that jack of all trades, but jack cannot be translated into Tamil saying that nari ella vittayum therinda narin solla mudiyadhu. So it comes into Tamil as sagala kala vallavan. And in Tamil there is a saying that ore kuttaila oorna matta, that cannot be completely transported to English. You cannot put it across in English. So all that we would say is birds of same feather flock together. So cultural appropriateness must be taken into consideration and paid more attention to. Then consistency. You cannot keep swaying. At one moment you cannot use one particular word to refer a circumstance. You cannot use one particular phrase to refer to a circumstance, and later on in the second half of the paragraph you cannot substitute it with another synonym of it. So all that is needed when you start making use of one particular word to refer to a situation, a circumstance, or you like to paraphrase it in a different style, that must be followed till the end of the translation process that involves. Next comes contemporary language. Whatever language you are trying to translate from, whatever might be the source language and whatever might be the target language, you must choose it in such a way that you are familiar with both. There are lots of people who say that just being bilingual will be enough. Just when you are aware of two different languages, you can become an expert translator. But that is really a make-believe. It is fake stories that has been attached to translations. But once you want to be a translator, once you put yourself into the role of translation, all that you have to take into account is you must be proficient in both the language, the source language as well as the target language. You must be able to substitute each and every word that is expressed in the source language and find an equivalent in the target language and expresses it in a better way that it exactly resembles the source language. Next comes the key elements of translation. There are two different key elements in translation. One is language focused element and the second one is management focused elements. Now looking into language focused element, it is all, what are the key, what do I mean by key elements of translation is what is needed. Once you start translating yourself, when you start putting yourself into the act of translating, what all must be taken into consideration is what I address as key elements of translation. The first thing when it comes to language element, all that you have to take into consideration is translation, that is translating from the source language to the target language. Next is editing. You can never ever one can assure that you will be perfect at the first setting. Many a sitting is demanded, many a proofreading is demanded, many a going through is demanded, and a cut copy edition will help us better. So editing comes the second. The third one is proofreaded. Again and again proofreaded, so that you convince yourself rather than convincing others. You yourself must be convinced. You must be able to convince yourself and defend your action, and that could be possible only by proofreading. The fourth one is machine translation. Now that we are technologically strong, machines come for our rescue better. So when you're not aware, or if you're not sure that you would be able to do better manually, switch on to machine translation, which would help you better. Once all the first 4 steps are done, the last and foremost is post-editing. After editing, go through it again and again, check it again and again, see whether you are correct, whether your editing part has been completed properly, whether it is up to the mark, and it will speak for you. Next comes language targets, which means whatever you do with the language stays with you. You are so proficient and your language is up to the mark. Next, we pay attention to management focused elements, which follows in the next slide. This management focused element is first fix what your project is all about. How long, what time duration you would need to translate that script into the target language. So project management, whether you are really eligible for the project, whether you could execute it in a better way, whether it is of need, all that has to be taken into consideration when it comes to project management. Then fix your budget. Just be clear what amount of money is involved or needed to complete your action. Where all you need money to support you, how much is involved, that is account management. Next is what all tools are necessary. You need a machine, you need an assistant, you need so much of documents, so things to suggest what is needed. So tool suggestion. Next is linguistic suggestion. Until and as far as I referred earlier, as far as you're so strong that you are really good in both the languages, don't try it, translation. So linguistic selection is the most important thing when it comes to management focused elements. Look into in the next class. See you. Thank you.